I attempted a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokémon Emerald using only grass-type Pokémon, and it didn't go the way I was expecting it to. The grass type is one of the weaker types in Pokemon, and in spite of the fact that Hoenn is a region that many would say consists of entirely too much water, grass types do not have a good time here in Gen 3. With multiple gym leaders being a complete nightmare for my grass types, I'm suspecting my team of vegetables will get cooked more than a few times. I'm sure by now you're all familiar with the rules of a hardcore Nuzlocke, but if you're not, I've got a list down in the description below. The challenge begins early as I'm immediately tasked with trying not to suffocate in the back of this truck. I manage not to asphyxiate and hop out only to be greeted by my mother, who doesn't seem too concerned about my health or my safety. Still feeling lightheaded, I wander into the wrong house, but thankfully my new neighbors are warm and inviting. Maybe a little too inviting. I find Professor Birch being attacked by a trash panda, and in order to save him I grab a Trico from his bag. I name him Spinach, and after I use him to defeat May, I get some Pokeballs and the challenge officially begins. Over on Route 102 I catch Lettuce the Lotad, and her water typing is going to be very useful. Eventually. Look at all these amazing water type moves she learns by level up. Up ahead in the Petalburg Woods I have another encounter. A Shroomish that I catch and I name Cabbage. This little lady is very important and will determine whether or not this will be a successful attempt. Have I seen any Shroomish? Funny that you should ask, because I guess that'll have to wait. Alright, anyways, Hey, where are you going? Don't you still want to see my Shroomish? I can't believe the stranger that I met in the woods turned out to be a weirdo. I get to Rustboro City, and while preparing to take on the first gym, I'm able to evolve Lettuce into a Lombre. Now it's time to take on Roxanne. As you could imagine, the Rock-type gym will be one of the easiest we're going to face throughout the entire challenge. Lettuce is able to KO her first Geodude with an Absorb, but the second Geodude survives with 1 HP and lands a Rock Tomb. That's actually perfect because it forces Roxanne to use a potion on the Geodude instead of her Nosepass. Another Absorb heals Lettuce almost back to full as she sends in her Nosepass. She uses Block, so now Lettuce has no choice but to take down her ace. Absorb is pretty weak, but Nosepass wastes time going for Hardens for some reason. She wastes even more time by healing up with an Oranberry and using another potion, but eventually Lettuce is able to finish it off and earn us our first badge. Hey, it's the guy who wanted to see my Shroomish. Get back here, you son of a bitch! I met another stranger in the woods, but this one is much more friendly as she gives me a Miracle Seed to boost the damage of our grass-type moves. Because I saved Mr. Briny's Wingull from Team Aqua, he offers to sail me over to Dewford Town. Before taking on the second gym, I can actually get another encounter. I can have him sail us over to Slateport and head just north of the city to Route 110, where I catch an Oddish that I name Celery. His secondary poison typing is usually not very helpful, but against Brawly's fighting types it will be. Brawly leads with Machop and I send in Cabbage. She misses her Leech Seed and Machop sets up a Bulk Up, so we're not off to a great start. She lands one on the second try and then gets hit by a Karate Chop, which thankfully doesn't crit. I swap into Celery, but Machop went for Low Kick, which does basically nothing, and he heals back to full with the Leech Seed that Cabbage set up. Grass types do excel at one thing, and that's being very annoying. Celery lands a Sleep Powder, and the combination of Absorb and Leech Seed chip away at Machop, who never wakes up. Meditite comes in, and its only attacking move is Focus Punch, but because it knows Light Screen, I choose to put it to sleep so I can get a safe switch back into Cabbage in order to heal up with a few Mega Drains. She puts Meditite in a heal range, so I go for a Leech Seed knowing she can't be hit by a Focus Punch here. The combination of Leech Seed and a critical hit from Mega Drain get the KO, and Brawly sends in his Makuhita. Another Leech Seed connects as he goes for a Bulk Up. Then I swap back into Celery, and he sets up another Bulk Up, which is a bit scary. Celery outspeeds but misses a Sleep Powder, and now Makuhita is at +3. Celery misses another Sleep Powder and gets hit by a Vital Throw, but tanks it reasonably well considering the attack boosts. I decide to swap to Absorb in order to heal. Between the Oranberry, Leech Seed, and Absorb, Celery is able to get back to nearly full HP. A fourth Bulk Up allows Celery to get all the way back to full, but now a Vital Throw is going to do quite a bit of damage. Because Absorb is so weak, it ends up putting Makuhita into Super Potion range, but at least some of that healing is going to result in Celery gaining HP back. He brings Makuhita back into the red and goes for Reversal, which takes Celery all the way to just 2 HP. That was way too close. Thankfully, Celery is able to finally get the KO after an excessively long gym battle and earn us our second badge. After making quick work of Team Aqua in Slateport, I head north where one of the only semi-difficult rival battles in Gen 3 takes place. Before facing May, I decide to evolve Cabbage into a Breloom. She leads with a Wingull and I lead with Celery in order to put it to sleep. This allows for a switch into Cabbage, and I basically just need to hope Wingull doesn't wake up. She stays asleep, which allows Cabbage to set up 2 bulk ups, then she's able to outspeed and sweep through her entire team with Headbutt. Not the most noble strategy, but no one said life is fair. Sorry, May. When I arrive at Mauville, I run into Wally, who's blocking the gym entrance and won't move until I humiliate him in front of his uncle. Before taking on the next gym, I have another encounter, although it's only got a 1% encounter rate, so after running around in the grass for literally 20 minutes, I eventually find a Seedot that I catch and I name Brawly. I quickly evolve her into a Nuzleaf and then level up the team and get ready to take on Wattson. With lots of monotype runs, Wattson is either very easy or very difficult. This is one of the few examples of a run that falls right in between those two extremes. I lead with Celery, who's now a Gloom, and... okay then. Clearly Voltorb wanted to be here for a good time, not a long time. Electrike comes in and goes for a Howl, but Celery puts it to sleep. Since the strategy worked out so well against May, I figured it's good enough for Wattson also. Cabbage comes in and sets up 2 bulk ups, then gets the KO on Electrike. Magneton comes in, and because Cabbage avoided being paralyzed by Electrike, I opt for another bulk up, knowing he'll probably go for Thunder Wave, which will be cured by a Cherry Berry. A +3 Mach Punch on the following turn takes down Magneton, and Manectric comes in. He outspeeds and lands a Thunder Wave, but Cabbage avoids paralysis and lands a critical hit Headbutt for the KO to earn us the badge. The battle ended up being relatively easy, but had we gotten worse luck with sleep and paralysis, things could have gone sideways in a hurry. After reuniting this couple and getting the HM for strength, I make it to Fall Arbor Town and run into Team Magma and Team Aqua. They decide to involve me in their drama even though I was minding my own business, and now I have to chase Team Magma up a volcano. I make my way to the top and I find Maxie. I lead with Lettuce against his Mightyena in order to take the Intimidate and get a pathetic amount of damage in with a Fake Out before switching into Celery. He gets hit with a Sand Attack as he comes in, then he gets hit with a Bite, but he manages to avoid the flinch and lands a Sleep Powder in spite of the accuracy drop. I swap to Cabbage and set up a Bulk Up. Mightyena wakes up and hits a Bite, then goes down to a Mach Punch. Camerupt comes in, and I didn't get to set up enough Bulk Ups in fear of being hit by Sand Attacks. But Cabbage lands a critical hit Headbutt and takes it out in one hit. With his biggest threat out of the way, all that remains is a lowly Zubat, and that also goes down to a single Headbutt. After hiking down the side of a volcano and relaxing my sore muscles in the hot springs with some beautiful ladies, I train up the team and prepare to take on one of the most terrifying gym leaders in Hoenn for my team of grass types. Flannery and her fire types clearly present a challenge. All of her Pokemon know the move Overheat, and she loves to set up Sunny Day in the process. In spite of that, I feel like I have a decent plan, but it's going to rely on a bit of help from the AI. I lead with Celery versus her Numel in an attempt to bait out an Overheat. She sets up a Sunny Day after being hit by Absorb, then I swap into Lettuce, who in spite of the fact that she doesn't know a single water move, is still part water type. She gets hit with an Overheat, and thanks to her massive special defense, still has 46 HP remaining. After a Fake Out for some chip damage, I switch to Absorb, but because of the special attack drop, the AI decides its best option is to go for Magnitude. Another Absorb and Magnitude on the following turn prompt me to swap back into Celery, who gets hit by a Magnitude 10. He outspeeds and lands a Sleep Powder, then I swap into Cabbage in order to set up Bulk Ups. Without the sunlight, even with Numel waking up, it is highly unlikely that Flannery will use Overheat. This allows me to set up 5 Bulk Ups as Numel just spams weak Magnitudes and 1 Takedown. And at +5 attack, Cabbage can return sweep through her entire team, including her Torkoal. After defeating Flannery, May gives me a pair of Go Goggles, which allows me to access some new encounters. In Mirage Tower, I recover the Root Fossil. Then I head outside and catch Kale the Cacnea. I revive Edamame the Lileep and then head over to Petalburg in order to defeat my father in hopes of earning his respect. I lead with Celery versus Spinda, and he's able to tank the super effective Psybeam pretty well, which is great news because he missed his Sleep Powder. This shouldn't be a problem though, because I'm sure he'll just hit one on the following turn. Bruh. Thanks to a held Person Berry, Celery breaks out of confusion and then finally lands a Sleep Powder. I swap into Cabbage and set up 3 Bulk Ups, then go for a Mach Punch to take down Spinda before it can wake up. Vigoroth comes in, but now that Cabbage is at +3 defense and no longer at risk of being confused, she can set up another Bulk Up comfortably while shrugging off a Slash. Another Mach Punch takes out Vigoroth, then Linoone comes in. I figured there's a decent chance that he goes for a Belly Drum, so I set up another Bulk Up, but he just goes for Slash, which paralyzes him thanks to Effect Spore. Linoone easily goes down to a Mach Punch, and at +5, Cabbage is now strong enough to Oko the Slacking. My dad doesn't seem to be taking the loss very well. Using Bulk Up strats can only get the team so far, and I'm not going to be able to cheese my way to victory for too much longer. After getting Surf, I'm able to get the Ice Beam TM from the abandoned ship, which means Lettuce will finally have some useful moves, and give us some much needed type coverage. On my way to Fortree, I catch Asparagus the Tropius, then easily dismantle Team Aqua and the Weather Institute. May, on the other hand, might not be as easy. Her Pelipper knows Wing Attack and is generally quite annoying with Protect. Celery poisons her and then hits an Absorb in between the Protect spamming, then takes a ton of damage from a critical hit wing attack. Celery would be dead to another crit, and I'm not taking any chances, so I sent in Asparagus, but she just goes for missed. The fire chicken comes in next, so I swap to Lettuce, who gets hit with a sand attack, then misses a fake out. Another sand attack prompts me to switch into Edamame, and then Combuskin sets up a bulk up, which is not ideal. A second bulk up is a bit concerning, but Edamame hits a Confuse Ray, then I swap back into Lettuce, and her dumb chicken hurts itself in confusion. A Surf then gets the KO, and I probably could have just sat there spamming Surf and hoped to hit through the accuracy drops, but I cannot risk losing Lettuce to something silly right before the next gym. Speaking of, the next gym is a straight up nightmare for my vegetables. Winona and her flying types are a disastrous matchup for us, and I'm not able to evolve a few of the team members due to the level cap and not being able to get the Water Stone yet. I would love to bulk up Sweep with Cabbage, but her 4x weakness to flying type moves coupled with Swablu knowing Parasong makes that virtually impossible. The one thing that grass types have going for them is that they can be incredibly annoying, and I plan on annoying Winona's team to death. If not, we'll be on to attempt number 2. I send in Lettuce and hit a fake out, then a critical hit Ice Beam takes out Swablu just to show Winona that we don't respect her or her birds. Pelipper comes in, so I swap to Edamame, but she just goes for Protect. She goes for 2 more, but eventually it fails, and then we land a Confuse Ray. I swap into Celery, and Pelipper hurts itself in confusion. Eventually Celery hits a Sleep Powder after more Protects, then I can swap into Kale safely. I'm hoping to be able to set up Growths while Pelipper is asleep, but I only get off 1 before it wakes up, but it only misses a Supersonic as Kale gets off a second Growth. She misses another Supersonic and goes down to a Feint Attack. I don't know why they programmed every Pelipper trainer to spam anything except attacking moves, but I appreciate the devs for doing it. She sends in Tropius, who goes for a Sunny Day, which lets Kale hit a strong Feint Attack. Anticipating an Aerial Ace, I swap into the only team member not weak to flying type moves. Edamame tanks 2 of them relatively well and hits a weak Acid, which doesn't get the KO, but does force her to use a Hyper Potion. Winona then Galaxy Brain swaps into Skarmory, anticipating another Acid, but I swap to Confuse Ray. Get wrecked. I swap to Celery on a Steel Wing and he tanks it reasonably well. Skarmory hurts itself in confusion on the following turn, and Celery hits a Sleep Powder which allows me to go back into Kale safely and hit a Leech Seed. I have to stall this thing out because if it wakes up and hits an Aerial Ace on anyone other than Edamame or Celery, they're done for. During the stalling process, Skarmory wakes up and snaps out of confusion and hits a Sand Attack. I swap between Celery and Edamame, baiting out Steel Wings into Celery and Aerial Aces into Edamame as Leech Seed keeps them both healthy and slowly chips away at the Skarmory. Celery gets crit by a Steel Wing and survives with just 5 HP, then heals back up thanks to a Citrus Berry after the final tick of Leech Seed gets the KO. Tropius is back out and once again sets up the Sun as I swap into Edamame. The strategy is the same as before, hope for some good Confusion luck or defense drops with Acid. We get the Confusion luck, but no defense drop. Edamame's Citrus Berry activates and Tropius hurts itself in confusion again, and we finally get the defense drop with Acid, which is good because she uses her second potion. Really glad she didn't use that on Skarmory. Acid still doesn't do much damage, but it is a little better. She then goes for Solar Beam now that the sun isn't out for some reason, so I take the opportunity to swap into Cabbage, who is mostly just there for moral support. She gets crit and it activates her Citrus Berry, but she's able to get the KO with Return. Last up is the dreaded Altaria, and I want to avoid sacrificing Cabbage if possible. I swap into Edamame, and thankfully she saw the KO with Aerial Ace and didn't start setting up Dragon Dances. She goes for another and then we land a Confuse Ray. I swap into Kale and we get good Confusion luck, which realistically saves Kale's life. I have another Dark type, so I had intended on sending out poor Kale to her death, but I didn't have the heart to tell her that's why she came back into battle. She can survive 1 Aerial Ace, and I need to set up Leech Seed, but Altaria gets hurt in Confusion again, so Kale is still at full health. Altaria snaps out of Confusion, but gets greedy and goes for a Dragon Dance. Then Kale activates her Oran Berry with a Feint Attack. At +1 attack, Kale gets hit with an Aerial Ace, and she survives at 9 HP. Her Feint Attack then puts Altaria into the red and she gets knocked out by Leech Seed, meaning that not only does Kale survive, but we were able to escape Winona without a single death. That battle took forever. It was almost a 15-minute clip. I wanted to Ice Beam the Altaria, but there's no safe way of getting Lettuce in there if she'd set up any Dragon Dances. That wasn't the cleanest strategy, but it was effective, and that's all that matters. The last battle with May really isn't worth covering, but it does result in Spinach evolving into a Sceptile, so that's pretty neat. I also evolve Celery into a Vileplume. At the top of Mount Pyre, I run into Archie, who steals the red orb from these old people who then decide to make that my problem instead of their problem. Then I make my way through the Magma hideout and I find Maxie. He's in the middle of an idiot contest with Archie, and after using the blue orb against the giant red legendary Pokemon, I'd have to say he's currently winning. He challenges me to a battle, but he hits Cabbage with a Swagger on the switch, and her Person Berry heals her confusion, so now she's at +2 attack, cementing Maxie's place as the bigger idiot. His Crobat does take Edamame to just 20 HP for a bit of a scare, but Lettuce takes care of his Camerupt, and we're able to get out of here unscathed. I finally catch up to Archie to give him his silver medal in the idiot contest, but he escapes on a submarine. Wait, did they just open the hatch while it was underwater in order to let him in? Maybe Maxie doesn't have this competition wrapped up after all. I find them at their hideout, but they manage to get away again, so I decide to take a break and surf my way over to Moss Deep so I can get ready to take on the 7th gym. Tate and Liza can be quite tricky, but I've got some good type coverage in order to deal with them, especially since Kale was able to survive against Winona. Spinach hits a Leaf Blade on Claydol as Xatu sets up a Calm Mind. An Earthquake does minimal damage and Kale takes out Claydol with a Feint Attack. Solrock comes in and I decide to Leech Seed Xatu while Spinach gets the KO with another Leaf Blade. Kale does get hit with Confuse Ray, which is quite annoying, but she does break through and hit the Leech Seed anyways. A Leaf Blade doesn't quite KO Lunatone and then Spinach gets hit with the Confuse Ray as well. Then Kale hurts herself in Confusion. I swap out Spinach and send in Edamame, then Kale gets put to sleep with a Hypnosis. While annoying, the only damaging moves they have left are Psychic type, so Kale isn't in any danger. Edamame gets hit with Psychic and breaks through Confusion in order to land a Rock Tomb, then Kale wakes up and takes out Lunatone. Xatu then gets taken down by Leech Seed, and with that, we have our 7th gym badge. Somehow, Maxie doesn't notice me even though he's staring in my general direction. I'm starting to understand how he picked the wrong color orb. Steven and I team up in a double battle in order to take out Team Magma. Lettuce and Metang are able to tear through their Pokemon with ease, getting an assist from Edamame when the second Crobat comes in. With Team Magma defeated, it's time to go find Archie. Assuming he didn't flood the submarine and sink himself and the crew to the bottom of the ocean. Something about this design seems awfully familiar, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Unlike with Maxie, I'm able to get to Kyogre before Archie uses the wrong orb on it, but just like Maxie, I'm able to defeat him with relative ease thanks to a timely crit from Edamame. With Archie defeated, I can at least prevent these morons from pissing off both legendary Pokemon. Or not. Oh, good. You're both here. I summon Rayquaza, who flies down from the heavens and stops Kyogre and Groudon from destroying Hoenn. Now that the world isn't flooded, it's safe for me to challenge the 8th and final gym, the Water Gym. You would think this would be the easiest gym, but Juan and his Ice Beaming Kingdra could cause some problems. Spinach is able to take down Love Disc with a Leaf Blade as well as Celio. Juan then sends out Kingdra, and I know Spinach can survive an Ice Beam, so I decide to hit a Leaf Blade hoping for a crit, but it doesn't. Then he goes for a Double Team, which is actually a lot worse than hitting an Ice Beam. I was hoping to be put into Overgrow to take out Kingdra with another Leaf Blade, but instead Spinach misses and then Kingdra goes for rest and wakes up with his Chesto Berry. Spinach misses another Leaf Blade and he goes for another Double Team. Spinach finally connects with another Leaf Blade, but now Kingdra has set up 4 Double Teams, which is a nightmare. He goes for rest and I decide to swap into Kale and set up a Growth while he's asleep. He then goes for another Double Team, but Kale knows Feint Attack, and thanks to a Growth, it does huge damage. Kingdra then puts itself to sleep again, sealing its own fate, as 2 more Feint Attacks get the KO. I can't believe he didn't go for Ice Beam once. The AI has been pretty silly this run. Crawdaunt goes down to a Needle Arm, and Whiscash suffers the same fate, and with that we've earned our 8th and final badge. In Victory Road, Wally pops up for a battle, and things get off to a rocky start as Edamame misses a Rock Tomb, and Altaria hits with a crit Aerial Ace, then survives on a Sliver. I swap to Lettuce, who outspeeds thanks to the Rock Tombs and gets the KO with Ice Beam. The rest of his team is dealt with rather easily, including his Gardevoir, who has the honor of being Broccoli's first victim in quite a while, as she's now back on the squad and fully evolved. I decide to roll with Broccoli over Kale for the Elite Four because she's much faster than Kale. So I send her to the PC safe and sound, and she gets to kick up her slow feed and relax, knowing that she isn't at risk of being steamed like the rest of the veggies. First up is Sidney, and due to the level cap and cabbage, he's pretty much a joke. I don't even need to set up bulk ups in order to sweep through his entire team with Brick Breaks. Next is Phoebe, and she requires slightly more effort than Sidney. Broccoli needs to set up a Growth first. Then she could sweep through the entire team with Feint Attack with the exception of Sableye, who survives and hits a Nightshade. Much more difficult than Sidney on a relative basis, but we managed to survive the frightening team of ghosts. The third member of the Elite Four is Glacia, and her Ice types actually represent a threat to my team of Grass types, unlike the previous 2 members. She's going to be quite tough. Nah, I'm just kidding. Cabbage sets up a bulk up and sweeps through her entire team with Brick Break. If you've made it this far into the video, I'm sure you were hoping for a more climactic finish to the video, but don't worry, the final 2 members of the Elite Four are actually challenging. The last of the Elite Four is Drake, and his team can't easily be swept through like the others. Lettuce is able to Ice Beam her way through Shelgon and Altaria, keeping up with the trend, but Kingdra comes in and forces me to use my brain again. I swap in Celery and Kingdra goes for a Dragon Dance. A Body Slam paralyzes, but Celery is holding a Cherry Berry and then hits a Sleep Powder and puts Kingdra to sleep. He hits a Giga Drain to heal up a bit, then Drake swaps into Salamence. In spite of that huge critical hit from Giga Drain, I opt to swap in Edamame on the Flamethrower. Dragon Claw then crits and takes Edamame to just 19 HP. He hits his Confuse Ray and then I swap him out as Salamence hurts itself in confusion when I send in Lettuce. After a fake out, Lettuce gets hit with a Rock Slide and then gets the KO with Ice Beam. His Sleeping Kingdra comes back in, so I swap into Cabbage and set up a bulk up as Kingdra stays asleep. Then hit a return for the KO. His last Pokemon is Flygon and it also knows Flamethrower, so I swap into Lettuce whose massive special defense helps her tank it with ease. She shrugs off an Earthquake and then gets the KO with an Ice Beam in a battle that was clearly more challenging than the previous three, but still relatively smooth. I'm pretty impressed with my Grass-type Pokemon up to this point, but we're not out of the woods yet. We're on to the champion Wallace, and his water types should mean we're in for another clean sweep, but that is not the case. He leads with Wailord and I send in Spinach, who hits a Leaf Blade that leaves Wailord in the red. Then he misses a Blizzard, which wouldn't have gotten the KO unless it crit, but it's still a very fortunate miss. Wallace uses a full restore, and Leaf Blade gets a crit the second time around and gets the KO, which brings out Milotic. Leaf Blade manages to get another crit, but he survives in the red thanks to his great special defense, then retaliates with an Ice Beam, but Spinach survives. Another Leaf Blade takes it out and brings in Tentacruel. I scout out a Sludge Bomb with Detect and then swap to Celery, but he swapped to Ice Beam, which is unfortunate. A second Ice Beam brings Celery to just 38 HP and Moonlight heals him back up. Now I'm sort of stuck, so I swap into Lettuce with her insane special bulk, but Ice Beam gets a crit. I hit a Fake Out and then swap back into Celery, and this time he goes for Sludge Bomb and activates our Citrus Berry. I need to put it to sleep, and while I can try to stall out some Ice Beams while healing with Moonlight, I need to just go for Sleep Powder and hope Celery doesn't miss. It appears as though my luck has run out. I send Lettuce back in on an Ice Beam, which activates her Citrus Berry, then get another Fake Out before swapping into Edamame, who gets crit by a Sludge Bomb. Things are going great. Edamame gets hit with an Ice Beam and survives at just 5 HP, and Rest heals him back up and his Chesto Berry wakes him up. Tentacruel then hits Edamame with a Toxic as he hits a Confuse Ray. He hits an Ancient Power and Tentacruel hurts itself in confusion twice and then goes down to 2 Ancient Powers. Ludicolo comes out and then starts with the double teaming shenanigans, but Edamame returns the favor and hits a Toxic of his own. Ludicolo sticks with the double teams as Broccoli comes in and sets up a Growth. Ludicolo hits a Surf and Wallace gets yet another critical hit. Broccoli hits a Feint Attack but gets hit with another critical hit Surf and goes down. She sat on the sidelines for so long, only to meet such a tragic fate. She deserved better. I send out Cabbage, who watches Ludicolo's life leave its eyes as the toxic damage takes it out. Then Whiscash comes in and it's not a threat. I set up Leech Seed in order to stay healthy while setting up Bulk Ups, and after a few, Return takes it down and Gyarados comes in and hits Cabbage with an Intimidate. That attack drop causes Return to bring Gyarados to the red, but he hits a weak Surf. Then Wallace delays the inevitable by using full restores. And once he's out, Cabbage gets the KO and earns us the victory. We may have defeated the champion, but this run isn't over. There's one more battle that awaits us, a final showdown with Steven and his Steel types. He leads with Skarmory and starts off with a critical hit Aerial Ace on Celery, but he hits his Sleep Powder on the first try. I swap to Kale, but Skarmory wakes up and hits a Toxic, but Kale lands a Leech Seed. I swap into Edamame and he sets up some spikes. A Steel Wing hits hard and then I hit a Confuse Ray. I swap into Celery, who takes spikes damage and a Steel Wing. Then I swap back into Edamame on an Aerial Ace. Oh yeah, it's the Winona strategy all over again, baby. Well, sort of, because I have to stay in and get hit by a Steel Wing in order to hit another Confuse Ray. Unfortunately, this time around, Edamame can't survive on Confusion luck and goes down to a Steel Wing. I send in Lettuce and go for a Rain Dance while he heals with a full restore, then Lettuce smacks him down with a Surf. Armaldo comes in and suffers the same fate. He then sends in Claydol, who also goes down to a Rain Boosted Surf. I'm not sure what Steven is thinking, but I certainly appreciate it. Metagross comes in and survives a Surf and then hits a Shadow Ball as the rain ends. I have to set up another Rain Dance thanks to the Citrus Berry, and Lettuce gets the KO after tanking another Shadow Ball. Aggron comes in, but it doesn't stand a chance as Lettuce mows it down with another Surf. Steven finally sends in his Grass type now that it's way too late, and Lettuce, after watching Wallace land crit after crit, decides it's time for her to land a crit of her own and takes down Cradily with an Ice Beam. That was an interesting run. I was expecting it to take multiple attempts to get through the midpoint of the game between Flannery and Winona, but my veggies really pulled through. I think if I were to try this again, I might end up needing multiple attempts, but that's a story for a different day. If you've made it this far, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider giving it a like. If you hate watched all the way to the end, leave a comment and tell me what's wrong with you. I'm not a therapist, but I'll try my best to help. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Well, it's about time for me to head out. Thanks for watching, and I'll smell you later.